Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. People in the back corridor, please take your seats. We'll be starting, and I'm not gonna repeat myself again. Alright then, ladies and gentlemen, the moment we have been waiting for. Today, we are joined by some of the amazing people around India, okay, for one killer panel, okay? So be ready. I present you the X-Men of UX, the Avengers of Design, and Justice League of Wireframed. Ah, that is a signal by the way for you people. I present you the creative panel. Come outside, my people. Here we go.
Perfect. People at the back, can you hear me? No? Okay. We'll increase the audio now. Now is it better? Good. Perfect. So, I know what all I've been thinking about. This is like the final act. There's a lot of hype and expectation around, so I will try my best to be a good host. Uh, but yes, this is what you have all been waiting for. And thanks, first of all, to all the speakers who have come all the way from Delhi, Bangalore, and Anik from Mumbai, right? So it's such a honor for all of us in the FS Mumbai community to have you all under one stage. I think all of us have been following you for such a long time on your creative journeys that it feels surreal to see all of you together in one frame. So thank you again, and a huge round of applause for the panelists. I would like to begin this panel discussion by discussing about the theme of this entire event, which has been looking behind in 2024, at the same time being hopeful about the next year. I think this year has been a very transformative year for all of us here. It brought with us challenges, opportunities, and countless lessons. And today, as I said, we are fortunate to have this exceptional panel here. And the beauty of this panel is that it's very multivariate. So we have Sapta from product design. We have Anik and Khushika who will be talking about logo and branding. And we have Ansh who will be talking about product design and AI as well. So it's a very good combo of different topics. And I know for a fact there's a lot of people in the audience here who are in these fields and want to hear their voice. So that is what we will do. But we'll start with a small round of introductions. I'll start with Anik. Anik is the founder of designer.in and is the creative mind behind some of the most recognizable logos in the industry. Folks who have a keen interest in branding, I think you will find value in Anik's content. For me, I have been following Anik's content since some time, and my biggest takeaway is that a lot of times you break down a lot of complex topics into simple, consumable, step-by-step ways. So thank you for that. A huge round of applause for Anik.
You guys hear me? Yeah? Okay. So I have to introduce myself.
Yeah, I have that. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. We'll go to Khushika next. Khushika has also been a key role in the entire branding part, and her approach to building purpose-driven brands has got a lot of impact. And again, I think I commented on one of your videos recently that in your stories and the reels that you post, a lot of times there is a very good hook, and then there's this one sick transition which transforms to the next frame. So I think that's very impressive for me. And your creator journey has been quite inspiring. I think you started around COVID, when you entered into this field of branding and design and you explored, and now we are here. So, congrats for the journey so far, and huge round of applause for Khushika.
Right.
Sure.
Okay. Hi guys. This is Khushika. Why don't you sorry. There could be a chance that a lot of you people might not know me, but I am a brand passionate person. Like I'm very passionate about brands. I read about brands, I speak about brands, and I make content about brands, and that's why we also have a branding agency where we serve brands with a lot of services, mainly making them better with a lot of communication thing. Because again, we believe that I think I'm getting too much into the introduction, right?
Next time.
But still, we help brands get better at communication with strategic design, and that's like the overall view, overview that what we do. Yeah, that's pretty much about me.
I'll go next to Ansh. I did a very small introduction in the beginning of his section by saying that he doesn't need any introduction. So, but I'll still give some basic context. He is one of the primary go-to resources in the Indian design scene. Not only Indian, I think a lot of international followers as well in terms of breaking down a lot of UX-related topics. And he has put a lot of free research and content for the community here. And it has been very helpful for all of us. So again, we are glad to have you on stage, Ansh.
Hi folks, thank you so much for inviting me and मैंने disclaimer में सबको यही बोला था that folks please make sure that आज के panel में you only ask controversial questions. Like not even a single question should be away from Kalesh. So let's make full use of these 75 minutes.
Cool. One thing, so I attended one of Ansh's events before and I've seen him presenting in a lot of other university talks as well. And one thing that has always struck my eye in the beginning is he always does his accessibility checks in the beginning where he checks for language, sound and audio and everything. Inspired by that, we actually started this event on that note by doing an accessibility check. So that's something which inspired us to do that. So once again, thank you. Last but not the least, we have Sapta here. I remember we announced Sapta coincidentally on the date of Swiggy's IPO announcement, and we were like, oh, we didn't see that coming. But first of all, congrats for the IPO. And for introducing him, again, I can write a blank check that he doesn't need an introduction, but he is the AVP of Design, VP of Design at Swiggy. Swiggy, again, is one of the apps I think all of us have in our phones. So if you have any feedback for Swiggy, very good. So you also recently completed around 100 days of journey in terms of sharing interesting UI UX resources, which has been very helpful for a lot of us. And that's the beauty of I think the entire journey to being a creator. That first of all you have to be consistent, but at the same time you have to understand the vibe of the audience, etc. etc. So it's a whole new journey in itself. So a huge round of applause for Sapta here.
The other mic?
Yeah, that was
It hurts my temper a bit, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the introduction, and it's ABT, not BPH,
Yeah.
but hopefully someday. But yeah, thanks a lot for inviting me out here. Now, I think I was sharing with some of you outside. Mumbai is a very special place for me because this is a city where I started my design career. My first job as a designer was here in Mumbai at housing.com. So, you know, any design related events in Mumbai is very close to my heart, and I can never say no. So, thanks for making it possible. Looking forward to a great discussion. Yes, Kalesh, it is. Let's do it.
Cool. I will start with some basic questions, but I would like to know, you have been here since some time now. What's your initial vibe of the event? What's the energy you're feeling from the audience here?
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, I came a little late. I was stuck in traffic. Actually, I thought it was Andheri West, and then from coming from west to east, I got stuck in traffic. But I love it. I love how cozy the environment is. I love the audience. Everyone's super interactive, super energetic. A bit jealous because you all had lunch and I did not, but it's okay. And yeah, I'm I'm very happy to be here.
I really love the space. You know, it's in the basement. It gives a warehouse sort of feeling.
Yes.
Great for creators and builders like us. I mean, not we are not the only creators. You are as well, right? Whatever you're designing and building. So I think the space is very cozy, like I said. And I'm meeting so many old friends. These people, of course. And then I also met a bunch of you folks upstairs. So it's like back home for me almost.
I'll go to the next question, which is, as I said, the theme of the event is on reflecting on 2024 as a year altogether. What do you think was the single most significant shift that comes at the top of your mind when you say, okay, 2024 में ये हुआ, and that was huge? You can start with Ansh.
I think for me, I left my full-time job and I understood how to sort of hire right kind of people, and I'm sort of going from a designer or an artist to sort of like a founder role, which allows me to think from new lenses. So अभी at this point हम दिल्ली में भी एक स्कूल खोल रहे हैं, so I'm learning कि schools में teachers को कैसे hire करना है, किस तरीके से एक HR कैसे आता है, कैसे talent को hire करना है. So I think 2025 is a lot going to be about me finding interesting people to work with and sort of shifting from being a designer to a creator and now to somebody who's trying to collaborate with more creators just like me.
I think I very much agree to what Ansh said, because in the starting of 2024, I was also kind of a freelancer and I started making content. Kind of, I was very at the beginning stage of everything. So, but yeah, in 2024, it's like we are expanding. We have now a big team and we are doing great work with great brands. And the one thing that I have experienced is that, when you expand, you have to hire people, you have to build SOPs for your agency. And agency or even a business is absolutely and all about the people you have in the team. And I think when I was talking to Dev Jyoti, I think, if I'm pronouncing the name right? Yeah, Devuji. Yes. So even when I was, talking to him, we exchanged thoughts of how much the team is important for an agency and how much SOPs are again important for the agency. So yeah, that is something I've learned, the basics of running a brand, running agency, running a very foundational business, and I think that's the one most main learning I have learned.
This year has been crazy for me. I've been very, very grateful to open my very own office space. I mean, that would be the highlight for me. Not much has changed. The game is the same. We have expanded, obviously, but getting a physical space, and Ansh, I think you will also, be judged for it. Congrats for that. I think it just changes your perspective altogether. You are more disciplined. You are more serious about what you do because working from your house, working from the same room you sleep in the same room you eat at, it's just a different mind shift, a different perspective altogether. And I would say definitely if you are running a business, if you get a chance and if you can, definitely have an office. It completely changes everything about you, teaches you a lot of things. That is the highlight, and just very, very happy with that.
Yeah, I'm a company guy. I think your quarters are not yours, but okay, let me think. So, 2024 has been really good for me. Of course, I've been working at Swiggy and also creating content at the same time. So one of the biggest goals that I have given, unwritten goals that I have given myself was, how can I remain consistent at content creation while doing great at my job? And there have been milestones this year in my career trajectory, which kind of briefly hints me that yes, maybe I have achieved both there. One is I managed to create some processes in my content creation journey. Of course, that involves hiring people, formalizing a few things. Yeah, I have to register a company, not as big as Ansh's perhaps, but still I do. I do have people who work for me. Not an office yet, but Zoom call works just fine. So I'm able to bring some processes which helps me that. And at my job front, yes, I think my title that you introduced me with, yes, I got promoted recently, I think, which is probably a testimony that I've been doing fine at work. And over and above, the biggest highlight definitely has to be the fact that Swiggy has gone public. I've been working in this company for the last 6.5 years, and I've seen it from being a very small company running out of one small room all the way to where it is today. And every time we do something and we see those graphs moving out there in the stock market is a great feeling. It's not just about money, it's not about earning dollars or something, but it's a great feeling I can't explain. You have to be through it. People say that you get to see it once in your lifetime, and I'm really fortunate that I got to see it. So that has to be the biggest highlight of 2024 for me.
That's great. That's great. I think I'm sure you have been mentioning about almost like converting into roles now on a consistent basis, and now you're also like in the founder mode right now. And I think you've been documenting your process where you on Insta as well, and I think there also I think we have got a few insights on things like the soft skills that you must possess. For example, you have to be very patient when you are building such a huge project, right? So I think things like those also helps the other leads as well who are also on the same path. At the same time, for me as a community lead as well, I do understand a few of the values that you mentioned. So keep them coming, keep the documentation game on going. Yeah. Perfect. I think the last question in this small warm-up thing we are having is a one-word answer. So you have to be very smart about what you say. So 2024, what's the one word which you feel is an overrated buzzword and shouldn't go into 2025?
Prompt engineering.
You stole my word, man. I wanted to say that. I have to think of a new word now.
Anything else at the top of your mind? Any word that just pops up? Cool. I will ask this question at the end.
I would answer, right? Since he has taken prompt engineering very cleverly, I would say AI. I think we should stop giving the attention it is craving right now. We need to be aware of it and all, right?
Yes.
Other people like us already exist, but I think we are making it way more important than what it should be.
Yes, yes. I think one internal promise that we took as a team before doing the panels this time. So we had two panels. One was the leadership panel and then the creators panel. One internal promise that we did is we won't ask one question, which is will AI take our jobs? And I think you also touched upon some of that it won't. So I won't be asking anything around that. So if anyone was expecting me to ask that question, sorry in advance. You have already know the answer.
Can I leak something? AI will take some people's job.
Courage. That's a good clickbait thumbnail, which we can explore.
It used to work 11 months ago.
But now it's not right.
Not anymore.
Okay, so now we'll slowly deep dive into the technical side. I start with Sapta. I think we have all been using Swiggy since a very long time. And when we entered into the field of design now, and we understand that design plays such a major role in making what Swiggy what it is. The question which I have is Swiggy is for the Indian market, and the Indian market is so hyper-local in terms of there's so many different type of users, user behaviors, patterns. So how do you prioritize on what personas you should look after?
Persona is another overrated word. And I'll tell you why it is overrated because most of the people do not understand what it is, especially people who are starting out. I know I review a lot of portfolios and I see some name cards, picture, name, age, profession. That's a persona. Persona 1. That's a persona 2. And then when one asks just one question, he wants to between these two personas and people often have an answer, which means that they are considering all of these as a recipe. Somebody told them that persona hona chahiye. So they just put it, right? So again, coming back, see, India is a huge market, we know that. But yes, it's also a difficult market because people are different. But if you look at it, the people who have access to internet, which is also a very large number, are more or less the top certain percent of the population, right? So that itself makes the problem much easier. Okay, and then we keep thinking that it's a tough market for us and all. But then I was chatting with our counterparts from other countries as well, like not speaking of course, right? I was chatting with the Grab team of Singapore. When I spoke to them, I realized that the problems are exactly the same. And at the first glance, it might feel like, hey, Singapore is a developed country. How can your problems be same as ours? But when we look at it, they don't just build for Singapore. They build for entire Southeast Asia. And when you look at entire Southeast Asia, maybe a Vietnam or a Thailand could be like some of our tier 1 and tier 2 cities. Maybe Singapore would be like the top 1% of people who reside in cities like Bombay, Delhi, and Bangalore, yeah, right? So at the end, if you look at all of them, even though we are not divided by geographies, the challenges, the problems are same. The kind of things that we do, they also do that because they do it for a particular market. However, the challenge that remains in an Indian market is segregating the people, which is also getting relatively easier because if you look at any consumer company, internet-based company, and I'm sure it's quite true for Find as well, more than 80 to 90% of their business comes from the top 6 cities of India, yeah, right? So yeah, based on that, we do our immersions, we meet our user base, and based on that, yes, we do try and build real personas, and then we deep dive into building meaningful solutions for them.
Great, that does make sense. Um, Talking about this large range of user behaviors and personas, and first mind is AI because all the AI models that exist right now, the engineers and the data people behind it, they must have designed or developed it in such a way that caters to a lot of people. It should be diplomatically correct. It shouldn't give you the wrong set of because it's a very sensitive. People can write anything, but you still have to be right and give the right answers. As I mentioned, Ansh, I'm asking you a question, but it's not about the AI release designers. I feel there can be better questions. One question which I have is, what are the key skills designers should have currently, considering AI has had some impact in the design space? So are there any key skills that stand out for you that, okay, if a designer has the skill, they should do good going forward?
So, the problem with these kind of questions is that when you ask the Ansh, wo kaun se skills hone chahiye, you're not giving me enough time to reflect about the question. So what happens now is that मेरे mind में तीन चीजें आएगी, which is dependent on the limited experience that I have.
Yeah.
Now, when I give you those three things, audience में एक bias आ जाएगा that maybe these three are the most important things.
Yeah.
So when I tell you the three things that are coming to my mind, be fully aware that these are not in order of importance. Maybe the laundry list consists of 10 items, and what I'm telling you right now is just three of them. And those are the same three skills जो मैंने deck में बताई थी कि number one, the ability to form patterns. And वो मुझे लगता है अभी भी seniors करते ही है, but I think moving forward even juniors would need to do that because you can't prompt well unless you can trigger the right patterns in your prompt.
Yeah.
दूसरा, your ability to act as a PM or a builder at times when it is required. So थोड़ा सा अगर आप no-code tools पे काम करते हो, you'll have more leverage. If you're a good prototyper, you'll have more leverage. Just restricting yourself towards कि नहीं मैं design system ही बनाऊंगा, मैं UI पे ही specialize करूंगा. I think specializations is going to be slightly risky. Like you might want to have a bunch of specializations. कुछ लोग इसको T-shaped generalist बोलते हैं, कुछ लोग इसको V-shaped generalist बोलते हैं कि आप multiple insights को tie करके you give one deliverable. And some इसको pioneer बोलने लगे हैं that you'll have two specializations and then you have some generic things. So basically like अपने horizon को broad करना. But मैं ये भी जानता हूँ कि आज जितने भी AI tools आ रहे हैं, आज से 4 महीने बाद their functionalities will also evolve. So whatever laundry list you create today, it becomes meaningless 4 months from now. So I think the third core skill would be your ability to learn things quickly. The faster you can learn things, the faster you can evolve, the easier it is to adapt. Adaptability as human beings has been one of the most important features. And if you were to compare our species with any other species, the only reason that we've come so far is actually because of our ability to speak and communicate clearly. Like if any other animal talks to any other animal, they don't have the right vocal cords, even though they would be fully intelligent. Like elephants are very intelligent, by the way. I don't know if you've read about it. Even whales are very intelligent, but it's just that they don't communicate with enough nuance. And when I say communication, communication is not just saying words, but it's your ability to trigger the right words, to bring people together, to know what to say, who to say, how to say. So just improving your ability to communicate will really help designers. Your ability to learn things faster will help you a lot. But as I said at the beginning of this answer, these are the 4-5 things that are coming to my mind. Don't have the bias that these are the top 5 things that you will need. So just find your own truth as well. But ये 5 तो होंगे उस में.
Thanks for setting that context, Ansh. I think a lot of people take word by word, right?
Yeah.
It's always good to have.
Never take any advice word by word.
Yeah, I think the last point which you mentioned is communicating greatly. And I think once you communicate clearly, it kind of becomes a storytelling aspect. And talking about storytelling, I would come to Khushika Anik. So you have been working in the entire logo and branding space. How important do you feel storytelling is in this entire area of work?
I think not only branding, I think storytelling is very, very much important in anything you do. Even if Ansh is coming here giving and delivering a speech, I think storytelling there also is very important. I think we as humans are bound to understand and sort of make sense of what the other person is saying if they say it in a nice story way. And I think this is also reflected in the movies we often see. Obviously, the demographics of movies have changed. There are new animations and everything, but the basics of storytelling has remained. So I think it's very, very important in branding and in every other thing we do. I think storytelling plays a lot of role there.
Yeah, I actually totally agree to Anik because when we make content, because what I think is अब लोगों का जो time span है, watching anything is becoming very like even if I talk about myself, I cannot watch a very long YouTube video for like very long time without interrupting. So it's like it's affecting everyone. So I think storytelling is something that makes things more engaging. Maybe by a book, by again connecting things, connecting the dots. Because once you start a story, you have something that makes people curious. Then you talk about another dot. Then you talk about another dot. So it's like पूरा जो pattern बनता है because again human brain is all about patterns. They like to recognize patterns and talk about that. So I think storytelling is again in our daily lives is very important when we talk because again we are talking to human beings and if the storytelling is not there, people will not really like to engage with the other person. So even in the branding, what I think is branding is all about human beings. It's all about your customers. When you build brands, we specifically make them very audience centric because हम उनके लिए ही build कर रहे हैं. It's not about we are satisfying the client or something, but again client को भी loyal customer चाहिए और हर brand को loyal customer चाहिए. And again the audience is something that we are focusing mainly on, and I think storytelling is again the very main element of each and every.
Can I add a bit of nuance to it? Like, totally agree with everything that you said, right? We all love stories. We all love listening to stories because it's interesting. But another thing, the way I look at it is, storytelling becomes very important when you're trying to drive a point home to someone who's not an expert. For example, if I'm a mathematician, and if someone's explaining a mathematical concept, they can speak in the most technical language that they want and I will understand. But imagine if I'm not a mathematician, I'm a layman. Now a mathematician wants to explain something to me, that's when story is essential, right? That's why you will see, why did our grandmothers and grandfathers tell us stories? Not just to entertain us, but every story had a value. We were not matured enough to understand those values if they were simply set out like a value. That's why they would come in the form of a story. The same thing is applicable everywhere, right? When you are explaining something in design to someone who's not a designer, story is the tried and tested way to get it done. Like even today at my work, right? I just don't interact with designers. I interact with leaders of my company. If I build something, I'll have to sell it not just to the CEO, but to the CMO, to the CFO, and a lot of other people. And I can expect them to understand the nuances of design. That's when I tell a story. Where laymen, like them, yes, for a designer, they are laymen, so that they understand and they buy into my vision and invest in it. This reminds me recently, it was a small symbol which I sold to some of our leadership using the example of a toothbrush in a certain way. But that thing's not live yet, so the next time when we have a meetup like this, I'll tell you the story.
That sounds good, yeah.
One thing that I want to add, we've been reading a lot about storytelling and see, why do people tell stories in the first place? If you were to pick any mythological tale that we've ever had, usually a story needs to have some meaning. And there's a high chance that there were a bunch of like old monks 500 years ago, and they said that to help people improve their lives, there's a rule book. There are 50 things that you should do in life. And उन्होंने probably पूरी society को बिठाया होगा और एक lecture दिया होगा कि आपको जिंदगी में 50 काम करने चाहिए, अगर नहीं करोगे तो फंस जाओगे. And किसी ने ध्यान नहीं दिया होगा. So what these guys decided, they're like, भाई, let's just create a story around it. Now the question is, what makes a story interesting? पिक्सार की एक 12 rules का एक प्लेबुक टाइप है. उसमें there's this one fundamental rule that when you tell a story, most people think it's A happens, then B happens, then C happens. But it has to be A happens, but then B happens, and then C happens. So it's never A and then B and then C. It's A but B and then C. Now, why would somebody watch or listen to a story? There are primarily only two reasons. Every story, first of all, either has a human being or an inanimate object being personified. So या तो एक इंसान के ऊपर कहानी होगी या वो बोलेंगे कि धरती माँ थी दो पत्थर आए तो धरती माँ is also being a personification of a human being. So now when a human being is listening to a story, two things happen. Either you visualize yourself into the shoes of the main character or you eventually become a mental friend of that character. So I recently watched Pushpa 2, right? Just to see. And by the way, do you know Pushpa 2 has earned 1,000 crore rupees before they sold any tickets? 5th December को movie release हुआ है and Pushpa 2 has already earned 1,000 crores with pre-release, pre-theatrical sales through digital rights, through Netflix and all of those things. किसी ने movie भी नहीं देखी थी. Completely based on hype. And you should watch Pushpa 2 because when I was, has anybody seen Pushpa 2 yet? No? What are you guys doing? So it's just like a masala movie, like in general. But when I was watching Pushpa, I realized that in Pushpa storytelling, they give that main character a bunch of flaws that makes you feel that, oh, Pushpa is just like me. And then there are some scenes where Pushpa is doing things that I wish I could have done in real life, but I will stop, I will draw a line. But he ends up doing that. And मैं जिस हॉल में गया था, I purposefully chose a hall जहाँ पे पूरा ये पटाखे फोड़ने वाला crowd है, just to see. जब मैं मूवी देखता हूँ अकेले देखने जाता हूँ, completely. तो आसपास के जो लोग थे, मैं नोटिस कर रहा था कि कब चीख रहे हैं, कब वू कर रहे हैं. And it was mostly all the criminal scenes. So the interesting insight here is that most people are very criminal. Intrinsically, like if law and order did not exist, if the concept of God never existed, I think crime would have been a daily thing. Most people do not commit crime just out of either fear of the police, jail, or God, which they haven't seen, which is a great concept, right? It's a good story to tell that अगर आप पाप कर रहे हो और अगर आपको जेल भी नहीं हुई है और अगर आप पकड़े भी नहीं गए हो, there's a high chance कि मरने के बाद आप फंस जाओगे. Right? It's such a great book.
Yeah.
So when we look at a great story always triggers this effect called the Zeigarnik effect. Zeigarnik effect क्या होता है कि something incomplete is there. तो आपके मन में रहता है कि भाई ये कहानी में end में क्या होगा? And you watch any hit movie, it always starts from the pre-climax. Three Idiots, it starts from the शादी scene. आप कोई भी मूवी देख लो, आप बाहुबली देख लो, it starts with the fire scene. They're all from the pre-climax, right? So the storytelling framework here is, if a story goes from A, B, C, D, the movie will start from C. Then movie goes to A, then B, and then C, and then D. So I think these are some patterns that we can also leverage in your brand, in your reels. Reels में भी यही होता है. Like if you follow Brute, have you seen Brute by Instagram? They would pick the most clickbaity aspect, play that, then it rewinds to the start. That is this principle only. Same principle that Bahubali uses, same principle that Three Idiots use. What होता है कि we are never able to catch these patterns. So we consume them, we get affected by them, but we never sort of break them down. So I think it's very interesting how there are so many stories being told around us.
Yeah. I think you talked about Pushpa 2. I think Anik team has done some work on Pushpa 2. Yeah,
He's made a chips ka packet for it, no?
Yeah.
How was that?
Sorry, I could not get it here. It was good. We asked him for the taste.
No, in general, not to the taste. But did they give you कि ऐसा ही font होना चाहिए? Did they restrict you with some color scheme? Or because I know the red thing was a mandate.
Yeah. There were certain guidelines. Basically, we were free to do however we wanted to do, but then once we sent our designs, there were certain changes which we had to compile with, and the time span we also had was very less. And there was this competitor, I think Uyam also, they reached the thing, and yeah, I mean.
So Pushpa के main title में there's this thumbprint type का एक texture.
Yeah.
Did they give you that PNG file or did you create that?
No, we created that.
So how did it look so similar to the main logo? Like how? मतलब वो it's very similar to how the main. I mean, it could have been easier for you know the main file then you texture based it or the global team did coordinate it. But it was bang on. Like I saw the packet, I zoomed in. And I'm like, this is exactly how the main logo ka line looks like. So, but was it an Illustrator file? Illustrator you would have made, no? Or how
Yeah, yeah. It was Illustrator. We also use Photoshop for the texture of the face, the gradients for that. We use Photoshop, but it was mainly Illustrator work only. And the entire thing was first hand drawn. Every single thing, even the fire in the background, the trips, everything was hand drawn sketch. Shown it to Beyond Snacks and Pushpa. They guys loved it, and yeah, that's how it was.
That's great, yeah. I deliberately chose this topic of storytelling because it's something very close to my heart, and I have been writing fiction, I've kind of stopped it, but that's something very close to my heart, and when you create a storytelling aspect out of a whole plot, that's a process in itself, and there's a lot of ways to say a story. But I think some aspect of storytelling also depends on who you are saying to and what you really want to say. For example, a certain project can be told in a different way if a design team is presenting it versus a sales team or a tech team. So a question to Sapta here. So in Swiggy, I know the design team is of course that, but you have to go closely with the engineers and other stakeholders. How does this entire collaboration workflow happen between all these set of teams?
Collaboration, long process. But I think you mentioned the storytelling part, right? Yeah, I got right on that, right? Whenever you're speaking to someone, you need to speak their language. And by language, I of course don't mean English or Hindi. It's like what they connect with, what they relate with. Use those analogies, use those examples, use those situations and use cases which they would feel on their daily basis. And then the latest story. It's much easier way to sell it to them rather than saying something which is so esoteric that they don't understand, right? That's one. Now coming to collaboration, one of the key tenets of collaboration anywhere, I believe, is trust. Because if you trust someone, it will be much easier for you to collaborate. Like imagine to build something, there are different kinds of stakeholders which are present out here. Let's take your event for example. It's a 9-member team, isn't it? You will split up your work between these people, and then of course you also have head who's out there. Now imagine thinking about this head. If this person couldn't trust the person who is taking care of, say, F&B, right? And the F&B person comes and says, hey, this is what we would do for reasons A, B, and C. And that person is like, hey, no, I don't trust you, let's go again and look into it or something like that, right? That is not effective collaboration. So trust is, I think, one of the most important things for collaboration in my mind. So since you asked about Swiggy, in Swiggy, there are different kinds of people, there are different teams. But one thing which is almost common across all people are everyone has massive amounts of respect for everyone. So when an engineer is working with me or someone from my team, we know that that person is the best known or educated or literate person around that topic at that point in time. So that's a belief that we go to the room with, and vice versa is also true. So every other stakeholder in the room, when they interact with the design stakeholder, they also know that this person right now is the most informed and knowledgeable person about this topic. Right? So when somebody says it, we believe it. Right? But having said that, there are also disagreements, and disagreements, in theory, it's very easy to resolve. It's like, when two persons disagree with each other, either one of them will end up convincing the other, or vice versa. Most of the time, we see it gets resolved between those parties. If it doesn't happen, that's when you bring bigger people, that's when you bring bigger people in there. Right? So yes, first is trust. Second thing is articulation. Ansh was mentioning about communication. Let me add one more word over it, articulation. How well you're articulating it with the logic and facts. And after that, still if you have disagreements, you bring in other people who help you out resolve some of these conflicts. Like I go to some of these meetings to resolve conflicts these days, right? So once these things are taken care of, collaboration isn't all that tough.
Yes, and I think a lot of talk has been on collaboration between two specific set of people which are designers and developers. It's always an ongoing conversation. Has Swiggy kind of cracked the code wherein you now have a great relation with them, the hand of this code? How do you work with them?
We have great relations. We have great relations, I'm tempted to say that it's like a cat and mouse, but no, it's better than cat and mouse, I would say. So another thing is we all take immense amounts of pride in what we do, right? Because whatever we are building, it is going to each and every person that your friends, relatives, everyone. I don't have to explain anyone. If I say, hey, that part is Swiggy's menu, everyone will know it because they have used it, right? So that's an added motivation for anyone and everyone. So often the kind of conflicts designer versus developer that we see is say the designer proposes something and the developer is too reluctant to build it. Right? Because maybe it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and maybe they're just not motivated to build that, or maybe the timelines do not suffice and so on. But in this case, if something is really good, the reason why a designer is proposing, the same reasons will also motivate the developer to build it. Yeah. It's not that it's just the designer's job to innovate. At times the developers also take it up as a challenge. In fact, at times it happens that developers come and say that, hey, you know what, this new thing is launched by Apple last night in an Apple event, and we could use it for ABC and so many other things. Let's do something together. Yeah. And then we sit and do, right? And then the designers will also say, right, no, this is not needed and all. But like I said, everyone is equally motivated. Now, this is of course an ideal case. There are small percentage, maybe 10-15% of cases where things are not as ideal, but largely it is very important.
I think one experience which I shared with the developers in my team right now is that if both the set of teams understand that this is the core problem to solve, and they really believe in the concept of empathy for the users, they come on board to solve it, and then they're like timeline gap, hard mein hum ye fix karna. This is one of the most crucial things, and that's a sight to see when both of them work together to solve a problem. That's
Time with हाथ में नहीं जा सकता. Right. See, one thing about maturing or growing up as a designer or any kind of builder is to know that you are not just a custodian of the users or user experience. You are a custodian of the product. Your job is to build the right product that stays and sustains. Yeah. There's no point building something that is great for the user, but then we cannot have it more than 2 months because maybe we'll run out of money by then, or maybe we take 6 months to build it, and by that time it goes live, the feature is already redundant, right? Or it doesn't make any sense. So all these things have to be considered because things change really fast. So we'll have to be mindful about timelines. We'll have to be mindful about business, and of course we'll have to be mindful about user experience as well. So we are custodians of all of them, and that's why more and more companies are calling them product designers. Of course, there's not much difference. You're always expected to do that, but it is just a sense of maybe ownership that hey, I'm owner of the product and not just the user experience.
makes sense. So I think we touched upon a few topics like storytelling, collaboration. I think there's one more aspect which is very important in having a product being successful, and that is selling it. I think Khushika, you recently mentioned in your Twitter post that according to a survey, around 90% of people cannot sell their actual work, and without selling your work, I think it won't even reach the people, right? So can you touch base more on this point on why selling your work and yourself as a portfolio for potential people is very important?
Okay. I think I'm sure you're asking that if you are a designer and you are not able to sell the work.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. I think if you are a designer and if you are not able to sell the work, that's like the worst case scenario, because you are scared. Because I have literally and legitimately seen designers who are really great, who are doing amazing, of course in their in their skills and in their artistic work, but are not able to reach the right audience, the right set of clients. And why is it that happening? Because they are not maybe presenting themselves out there. They do not know the business skills. And I always say this, that if you are a designer, maybe in the starting you can learn a few business skills. You can learn a few sales tricks, how you can talk to the client. Because as Sapta also mentioned that when you talk to a layman, because again your client is not your client is not a technical person. He cannot understand why you built this idea. But if you can give them examples, how you built that, how you concluded all those things, and what is the storyline that you placed into that design. So the efforts and everything needs to be there. So I think you should learn a few sales tricks. You should learn a few things that maybe take you to a point where you are earning a very good amount, and you can have a co-founder with you that can help you execute the business skills. Because again, I also have a co-founder with me. I handle the design things, he handles the business execution, and that is very important if you want to run a business, a successful business. So even if you are doing freelancing, if that is something you want to do, you are always good. Like you can always learn a few, as I mentioned, that you can learn the basics of sales and how the business execution is done. But if you want to expand, you need a co-founder, you need a person who can see the business execution of your business, and you can continue doing the work you love. Again, the design. So I think that is something that needs to be done, and the 90% designers who are not able to sell, that amount and ratio percentage will come to some to a point that is very low, and it is very important because if we look outside India, the designers are doing very great. But why the designers of India are not able to do that much great? Because again, the designing is good, but they are not able to present themselves, and they are not able to put themselves out there in like to the world. So that is very important. I think that is something we have, you know, we have cracked that thing through content creation. And I always ask people, and I always tell people that you should make content on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Behance. If you are not, if you are not okay with showing your face, maybe start posting your work on LinkedIn because वहाँ पे आपको face दिखाने की जरूरत नहीं है. And there are the legit people who really want to, who really want to get your work. So I literally get questions of people that of the designers, and they ask me that I am posting a lot of content on Instagram, I am being very constant, but still I'm not getting clients because yeah, Instagram पर if you are trying to put your content out there, अभी के time पे it's like भरा हुआ. There are a lot of designers, of course, everyone is putting a lot of effort. So you have to maybe find something to आपको stand out करना है. And if you are not able to, then maybe you should start posting your stuff on LinkedIn because Instagram पे there are people who are getting bored and they want to scroll Instagram just for fun. So if you are putting your work out there, the chances of getting a real client, a legit client who is going to pay you higher is very less. But yes, Instagram is very good for opportunities. So if you want to get real work and if you want to get real clients who pay you very good amount and the good clients, I think you should start posting your work on LinkedIn and Behance, of course.
I think would you like to add?
Yeah, मेरे पास तो बहुत नहीं है.
I think you have a manager.
Yeah. So. No, I think what Khushika said, I think is very important. I had read this somewhere, I don't remember, that if you are a designer and if you are posting content, you are already twice as better as someone who is twice better than your skill. I hope that makes sense. So what I'm trying to say is that for people to find you and for people to think you are valuable enough, it's very important to post content. I mean, कौन से way में you are doing it, different mediums does not matter. But if you try to put yourself out there, you are already twice as better as someone who is already better than you. So I think I hope that helps. It helped me. It keeps pushing me always still. So.
And I think when you post content now, you see that when you put your content out there, you work out there, you see that people are maybe giving the feedback. So the how do I say this? I mean, okay. I mean the amount you want to grow is that gets that increases because when people are looking at your work and then you see that okay, people are maybe putting good comments out there and maybe people are the good designers out there are giving the feedback.
Yeah.
So वो learning सीखने की जो वो चीज होती है ना that वो भी ऊपर जाती है.
That's true.
And I think that is very important because as a designer, as a content creator, whatever you are doing in your field, सीखना बहुत जरूरी है. Getting better with time is very important.
I'm sure will do.
Yeah. So I think a couple of things that has helped me because I've been on both sides of the table. I have sold my service to somebody else, and now that I am hiring people, I sort of see the same tactics being applied to me. So I think when it comes to selling, you basically have to convince the opposite person that you're the best option they can get. Right? Now there are two ways to do this. One, you actually become the best option that they can get. Or you just convince the opposite person that you're the best option that they can get. And this is where visibility comes into the picture. When somebody comes to me and says, "Ki Ansh, aap kitne badhiya designer ho," I often tell them that no, you know very few designers. Usme se maybe I'm the most visible one. So I can say that I'm one of the most visible designers, but I will never say that I'm one of the best designers. And people confuse visibility with competency. But in reality, in the real world, I'm not the most competent. And do you know there's one more industry, and not industry but a region, where the same tactic is heavily applied, and it is dating. And I once watched a video where the guy said that in India we don't have a lot of good salesmen or marketing people because dating as a culture is introduced very late. People who start entering the dating pool very early on, they know how to sell themselves. Right? And hota kya hai that when you are facing a client, you basically have to convince the client that within the time frame and within this budget, I am the best that you can get. And to make that argument a strong argument, you need proof of work, you can have testimonials, you can have social proof, you can have confidence in your own speech. And I think these small tactics can really help you sell well. Just convince the opposite person that you're the most best option that they can get in that budget, in that time frame.
Yeah, I think that dating analogy is a lot relative and makes sense as well. But I think we discussed a lot of factors. I think I will move to some quick games to make it more interesting. Introducing you to the agree or disagree round. So you have just one word, agree or disagree. You need not explain your logic behind it. We love you.
I will disagree, just disagree back to back.
Just to make it a bit more interesting, I'm dropping the reasoning part. So I'll ask one question, we'll go from left to right. All you have to say is agree or disagree. Yeah. So the first question will start on a simpler note. Attention spans are so short today that storytelling through design is slowly losing its insight. Yes, sir.
Disagree.
Disagree.
Yeah, disagree.
Actually, disagreeing your question as well. There are 2 points in it. Which one am I disagreeing? First one or the second one or both?
I will not say
He's also not doing the reason. They are not giving me the
Questioning the question.
That's being a designer. Question everything.
Cool. So we started a very easy one. Slowly I will increase of the thing. Generally, users don't care about aesthetics as long as the product solves their core problem.
Agreed.
I didn't get the question.
So generally, users don't care about the aesthetics of your product if the product is actually solving for their core problem.
Okay.
Yeah, that is design. Agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Agreed.
I would have loved to say conditions.
Okay, now third question is minimalism in design is overrated and doesn't suit today's audience needs.
Agreed.
That was a hard one.
Can I say more things?
You can say more.
Sure.
Can you repeat the question?
Minimalism in design is overrated and doesn't suit today's audience needs.
I feel like it can be overrated now.
I'm detecting a lot.
It can be overrated now because personally I feel like it has become a trend. And you know how trends just come and go.
Yeah.
So I feel like right now it's overrated, but I think in a few years it'll just go away. And yeah, just come back again and go again.
It's a cycle.
Yeah, that happens.
I disagree.
Okay.
Agreed, it is overrated.
Because I've seen a lot of IRCTC website redesigns that are so minimal.
I have done one.
Does it do the job though? Does it do the job though?
No. That's why the question was added. Adding a bit of spice, dark patterns. There has been a lot of talk about dark patterns in the last week. So I thought I would just talk about it a bit. Dark patterns in UX are a necessary evil for complex
Are a necessary way to say, right? Disagree.
Yeah, same.
I didn't get the question. Dark patterns.
So it's mostly things that should not be there, but those are added in such a way that you're training your users to do something which is not actually right. So is it really necessary? Because a lot of businesses have been doing that to trick the user. For example, you got a premium subscription of an app, but you still are asked to pay the derivatives unless you check much. That's a dark web. So do you think?
I disagree.
Yeah.
But is it just me? I overthink every question. What is right or wrong? Like if Amazon excludes the GST and gives me a 100 rupees ka item as 80 rupees ka, and अगर मैं उसको खरीद रहा हूँ, technically they are right.
Yeah.
Cost is 80 rupees only, but maybe if I don't see the GST, the incentive to buy it becomes slightly better. So now we have to define how.
Probably, that's probably not a dark matter.
No, then what is dark?
Yeah.
Like how dark is dark? Like it's such a subjective question. How bad is actually bad?
I can define how dark is dark, but I don't want to name names.
How something?
So I won't go there. I'll go to the next question. Maybe this. I think this one is my own point. Designers spend too much time perfecting details that users will even not even notice. Yeah. Agree? They do it. Agree.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, because I think I've seen me including a lot of times we design all those small pixels, like the user wouldn't care about it, but I think it's all in our genes to do so.
You know, this reminds me of a story I read about Steve Jobs. I don't know if it's true or not. So apparently he had a wooden cupboard. Doesn't mean Steve Jobs, but then he was getting it polished. Okay, so the guy polished everything. So then Steve Jobs came to check it. Then he turned the cupboard around and said, "Hey, the back, this part isn't right. Why did you fix it?" So the guy was like, "Hey, no one's going to see it. It's going to be against the wall." He said, "I will know it." So that's why he wanted it to be perfect. It's probably not a true story, but yeah. So it depends on what are you talking about.
I think it depends on how obsessed you are in your craft, and I think sometimes you get that internal satisfaction, okay, I just did my job right. So I think that's a good thing to have. What I will do is, I will open up for 2 questions from the audience before I proceed to the next set of questions. So, basic etiquette for asking a question, raise your hands, do stand up, tell your name, tell question किसके लिए है, and then you can ask the question. So raise your hands if you want. Sure.
Yeah,
I see.
Sure. Yeah. Hi. So I'm Dan. I'm a product designer. So my question was, so like obviously I've talked a lot about AI and stuff, but coming back to the thread of storytelling, right? So at least I personally believe that if you're good at storytelling, regardless of format, that story can adapt, right? So as an example, if you take the story of product right now, and then let's say as Ansh had mentioned, right, that even with AI, right, like if you can tell it a story, it can adapt to create to be a solution that would service you. Similarly, even if you look past AI, right, if you look at something like AR, VR, if you're able to tell a story within those experiences, you would be able to solve the problem. So my question is, how do you, at the start, define a story that can adapt to all of these different formats? Why design?
Who would you like to answer?
For now, Sapta.
I think he wants to answer from everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, let me process what you mentioned, right? Okay, you mentioned about storytelling via different platform, and how does your story adapt? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Tough question, man. See, the first thing is, what I feel is, you should just get a basic form of storytelling right. And if you know your platform well, you figure out how to do it. Okay, so I think the first part is where most of the people lack. To give you an example, if I tell you, could you tell me what was the process of you stepping out of your house today and reaching this place? Okay, now this question can be for everyone, right? Okay, none of you have to answer it now, but maybe think it in your head. This is an exercise I give my teams as well. Go through each and every event that has happened. Very boring stuff, right? You would have stepped out, taken a cab, or driven your car, something would have happened, and you reached. That's it. Right? Nothing interesting. But someone who really understands what a story is will find something interesting or meaningful out of that seemingly boring journey and make that as a hero of your entire story and build a narrative around it. That's what I think Ansh was trying to say when he says A, B, C, B. You C is the meatiest part of that story. So you use that as a hook in the beginning to narrate A, B, and D, right? That's what. It is about finding out what that C is in your seemingly boring life. Now, if you go back, you feel that hey, nothing really happened out there. But no, go back again. It could be something, something happened in the red light signal, something, or you hit the brake, or something confused you and you did something else and all. You always find something exciting about it if you have the vision to understand that. So, in my opinion, if you figure that out, the medium is not a big deal. Whether it's verbal, whether it's visual, whether it is something else, ephemeral, you'll be able to find it out as long as you know your platform well. And I'm assuming you know your platform well because you wouldn't talk about AR, VR unless you are a designer of that, right? That's my opinion. Folks would love to hear your thoughts as well.
I was trying to listen to what he was saying and trying to understand. So, no comments. Anyone?
No, I think first of all, some stories are for either short form or long form or text. You will waste too much time adapting a single story into like multiple formats. Some stories are just for short form and for long form.
Yeah, when I say story, I mean in the form of a solution. So, as an example, how initially Sapta mentioned that if you're pitching a feature, you pitch it as a story, right? So, in that sense, that if you have like let's say the feature of Instamart, right? And let's say you were building that for AR/VR, or let's say you were creating something with AI for Instamart, and you had to like retain the core of that story. How would you retain that core from a functionality standpoint?
Go ahead and add up to that.
I would be able to answer this because I've never done it. So I think Sapta would be the right person because I've never told stories for products. I've only told my stories.
See, the framework remains same, okay? Ansh mentioned, right? Your aim is to make the person in front of you believe that you are the best one for this job in the given constraint. You mentioned about budget, but let's talk about constraints. It could be budget, it could be time, it could be geography, and many other things. Now, coming back to the example that you're making, there are a couple of things that you need to be mindful about, right? Bits and pieces I might have said in the past. One is speak the language of the person you're speaking to, right? By language, as in who is this person? What do they want? What are the problems they have in their life and so on, right? Now, you use the example of Instamart. Let's assume that I need to sell Instamart to you. You are probably, 25 years old, someone? 21. 21 years old, okay, I'm sure, sorry, Mark. Right? I'll try to understand what does a 21-year-old get out of a 10-minute delivery of grocery and essentials? What are your problems? What happens if this 10-minute delivery is not existent in your life? What will be the pain that you will go through? I will understand that. Understanding that is knowing your language. Then I will paint a story around, hey, do you find it relatable? Every night, after dinner when you sit and you're working at your laptop, you suddenly, get that sugar craving. You feel like having an ice cream because Bombay is hot. Then the only way to get an ice cream is to step out, walk for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, fetch an ice cream, then come back. And overall, this entire process takes you around 30 minutes. What if you could just tap a button and the ice cream will come in your hand, just like that? That's a great way to sell, isn't it? But if I sell the same thing to say to your grandmother, I would narrate a very different story. I'll try to understand what your grandmother wants. What are the challenges that she's facing? It could be maybe she's cooking a special sambar or maybe vada pav in Bombay, right? And she runs out of one key ingredient. What does she do? Does she stop cooking her vada pav that she's making for her grandson? No, probably she wouldn't. And she cannot step out because maybe she has some knee pain or something like that, right? And she cannot drive a scooter or something. Tap a button, that masala comes to you. You see it, right? You need to understand who you are selling this to, What do they need? What are the problems that they're facing? That is knowing the language that you have to speak. Then connect it to something relatable that they have in their life. Right? Just go ahead and fire. Use your English, Hindi, whichever language you want. You have a story out there.
That's it. I think you mentioned about this thing of having a story to sell a product. I think Apple is a very great example because if you look at the ads, they say a story and the product is just placed somewhere and it acts in a way that they're not focusing on the actual product itself. But they're covering a day in someone's life and they just show how it enhances that one section of their life, how they brought people together via certain features.
There are this common thing, right? There are two examples. Like one is you can say 5 GB of storage, or you can say 5,000 songs in your pocket. The second one makes much more sense for someone like you who's probably listens to music. Yeah, that's storytelling in a way.
We'll take one more question, but this time from people in the back. There's someone who's already standing, so yeah, we can pass the mic to him.
Hello, hi, this is Pranav Pradhan, product designer at NT Finance. My question goes for Sapta. Right while like we were talking about the design patterns or the dark patterns. Okay, so talking about the conversion rate optimization, how does dark patterns help that, or maybe doesn't help that, and how is the user trust and brand loyalty associated with that?
Got it. Got it. Sure. This reminds me of a conversation that Ansh, me and Mir, right? We had in Singapore. He's the author of the famous book. Hooked. Yes, you read the book, I suppose, right? So we three were catching up, and then he mentioned a very interesting thing that I held on, right? The question that we asked was, how do you trust the person, right, or something along those lines? And he mentioned that when I'm meeting someone new, I give that person all the opportunity to fuck me. If they do, I know who they are. Of course, in a controlled manner, so that it's not completely, on that way. Sorry for using that word. So that's one way. But the thing is, people often know if someone is messing up with you. You maybe not know it now. You'll know it 6 months later, 1 year later, but one day you will know. And the day you know, you will completely lose trust on that person. Products are very similar. See, dark patterns are nothing but you don't realize that something bad is happening to you, right? Maybe I'm sitting out here and something is itching out, and I say, okay, maybe it's just a fabric. But if it so happens that this has put some poison inside me and I'm going to die in the next 1 hour or so, then that's a dark pattern because I didn't know something was happening to me. I thought it was all normal, but then something bad happened to me. That's, in a way, some example of dark pattern. So if you adopt dark patterns in your app or something, you will get instant good results for a short time because people wouldn't know that something bad is happening to them. So bad in this sense would be they end up buying more or spending more or buying something which they didn't need and all. It will give them a short-term gain to the company because because of which the user is not aware. But very soon they will be aware. They will know that hey, this app does this. Once that happens, they're not going to come back to it. So this is the thing. If you want instant gratification, you may do it. I would not recommend. But for long term, if you're playing a long-term game, you should never do it. Right? So I'd like to end this answer with a quote that our CEO at Swiggy always says, right? So once I was actually chatting with him around, this thing is good for the business, but this thing is good for the user. What do you think we should do? I think the conversation was something. I was also younger out there and not as mature. So then he said one thing to me. He said, Sapta, nothing can be good for the business if it is not good for the user. Right? So today you may feel that it's not there yet, but if it is good for the user, it will eventually give you good business. I hope that answers your question, my friend.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Perfect. That is a very good story. And it reminds me of this movie called, this Ranbir movie which sadly flopped called Rocket Singh Salesman of the Year. And there's this final dialogue that he makes of that one point that he will put his entire soul and effort into it into solving that. And one day he will reach that. So that's what reminded me of that movie.
Hey Suraj, can I
Yeah.
have a question?
Shall we take one more question?
Sorry. Hi, I'm Ansh. So this basically the entire conversation is all about what's it, storytelling, right? So when it comes to storytelling, it is putting things from users' perspective, and all of us are designers, especially product designers. We are building something from for different domains or for different demographics. So I just want to know. From the storytelling perspective, so how do you substantiate a storytelling by gathering the user data? That is more crucial because we are not telling anything from our assumptions. It has to come from the mass people, right? What their needs are, what their requirements are, pain points are. And we are just being mediators to put their voices in front of stakeholders, right? So how do you define or how do you convince your stakeholders from their perspective and make sure the business goals are meeting the user needs? So there will be a win-win situation. More the users are addressed, their needs are addressed, eventually the business revenue will be. Yeah, this is especially for
Okay, sure. First of all, I'll just slightly tweak the question that you asked. You mentioned users. I would want to take the word users out and call it receptors. Because receptor, as in it's a more generic word. It could be your user who's using the product that you built. It could be your boss who will take a decision, or it could be a client who you are selling a product or a service. Anyone who's receiving in the receiving end of the story. I'm just using the word receptor instead of the word user, right? Okay, that's one part. And you also mentioned about data. See, ideally, now in this, I think, of course, I would want all of you to answer as well. Ideally, if a story is good, really good, you may not even need to back it up with data. Okay? Hear me out. See, all this is psychological, right? If you can convince me with just one or two sentences that you say, even without looking into evidence, I may sign up or agree to that. Look at your world around you. Some come say, hey, buy this subscription, it's really great, it's going to give you this 5 goodnesses. Do you have any evidence you're going to get? But you still trust, because their storytelling or their way of convincing is so good that you're sold and you go ahead and buy it, right? So ideally, a great story may not even need data to back it up. But data is evidence. So if you're bringing some data into your story, that makes it even better. It makes it even more believable. If I say that, hey, you know what, come and join my course, 100,000 people around the world have bought it and they have got benefits. Now this is just a statement I made, you don't know. But if I show you some evidence, right, and actually show you the details of those users or maybe some of the testimonials of them written or something, whatever, right? That is in a way the evidence that I'm backing up my story with some concrete data as well, right? So yeah, that's how I put it. But in many cases, you may not have that data. You may not have the data, especially when you're starting out. You just have a vision and you want to build something. You have a conviction that it would work, but you don't have evidence yet. So how do you still convince people? That's how any founder raises money. They don't have initially a lot of numbers to show, but they just say that, hey, look, we can build it. This is a vision that we have, and investors do put in millions of dollars for that. So yeah, data just makes it better. But ideally, story should work standalone as well.
Actually, हम जहाँ बैठे हैं ना, WeWork, you should watch this show called We Crashed on Apple TV. Like, if you really want to understand how storytelling can literally change the world in general, because that guy, the founder of this place, was a great storyteller. I think it's a great show. Strongly recommended.
And one more question, which is small but little controversial in terms
Yes.
of. So, in context of dark patterns, do you think that somewhere the users are taken for granted just because to generate more business revenue?
See, there are two parts to it, okay? A dark pattern is something which is, like I said, the users are completely oblivious of some things, right? They just miss it, and because of which they end up, doing something, right? Example could be, you go, say to a Zara or somewhere to buy a shirt, and when you do a billing, you're told that no, the shirt actually comes with a pant. So you have to build both of them together, and you cannot go back, or you don't even realize that the pan is there, and then you end up paying 2 times the price or something. Then later you come back home and oh, I didn't even buy this when it's come from. That is in a way a dark pattern, right? But the other, some other, like the GST thing, at least in my books, that's not a dark pattern because the GST is a government thing, it is clearly out there, right? No one is speaking it there. So, yeah, that distinction is important. Now, if you really want to understand more about dark patterns, Government of India has actually released a document or a circular or something that has examples of what dark patterns are and what is not considered dark pattern, at least for Indian standards as of now.
But for Swiggy's, especially particularly for Swiggy, so there should be one more option to whether the receptor wants to give a tip or not. But it was taken for like either or, right?
So again, right? I'll tell you what it is. Since you have used the tipping example, the way tipping works is, having been that you have come to Swiggy for the first time, you add items, and without you knowing, I've added a 30 rupees tip on your behalf. And you go ahead and make that a dark pattern. But if you voluntarily added tip once, and then you manually check the box saying that, hey, add this tip for all my future orders, and then you place an order. 1 month later, you come and place another order, but you would have already said that, hey, add a tip of 30 rupees 1 month back. That's probably not a dark pattern because you voluntarily wanted to do that. If it was not a voluntary thing, could be a dark pattern. We should. Now again, I know that lots of things around Swiggy. Let me tell you, we keep doing some of these internal audits where we see, is there any dark pattern in our app? Because at times things happen unknowingly, right? Maybe we did it and then we realize that, hey, this could amount to a dark pattern. We immediately correct ourselves, right? And we proactively keep doing it because one of the reasons is the government doc that I said, that was actually made in collaboration with 2 or 3 other companies. One of them was Swiggy. So Government of India along with Swiggy and I think Amazon or Flipkart, somebody was there. They all sat together and they figured out that these are the things which could be counted as.
So is it experimental and then you get the feedback from the users? And
No, see, it is very obvious. When you use something, you obviously know that it's a dark pattern. Yeah. So it's not that, hey, is it dark, is it not dark? No. At times we may end up doing something. Of course, I don't remember any of the things that we have done because like I said, we are very, very particular about what we do. But at times it may happen unknowingly, like for all of you. Right? So just keep doing this audit, keep asking yourself what will happen if the user goes through this flow and all.
And keep asking how dark is really dark. How bad is this?
And the last most,
We'll have questions
how
at
much
the end.
weightage is given for the user center?
We'll catch up
Sure,
questions at the end.
I'm here.
Yeah. There's a meet and greet section from 7 to 7:30. So feel free to ask your questions at that time, but we'll come back to the agenda. I think we have used the word Kalesh a few times in this presentation, so anyways, let's bring it up. 2024 has been the year of rebrands, and there is recently,
I know where this is going.
recently there is a brand that got rebranded and it's in the news a lot lately. I am obviously speaking about Jaguar. We all saw how Jaguar's exuberant modernism took a hit. There's a lot of news, there's a lot of people supporting it, and people are heavily backlashing it. Spoiler, I have watched both of your reels and I know your views, but I would love the audience to know your views as well. So maybe Anik.
Okay. I can talk about it for a long time, but just to sum it up, we as designers need to realize that whenever these big companies they change anything, be it a logo, be it just a font or something like that, whenever they do that, there is a lot of people, a lot of strategy, a lot of teams, a lot of research which goes into the picture. What we see is not even 0.1% of what has gone and what has happened with the company, which resulted in what we see as a surface level. So, number one, we should stop trying to judge logos or be it anything, but just the look of it. And secondly, talking about Jaguar purely, there is obviously news out there that it was in deep losses and they're going to electric, so there was a lot of reasons behind it. But I also feel like that I think it's the era of rebrands. I think not only Jaguar, but there are like this year there were like so many rebrands we have seen. So it's also like an evolution we are seeing. It's also like a trend which is picking up, which a lot of brands are doing. And taking into feedback of a normal consumer, I would say is a sort of to an extent because see, not everyone can afford a Jaguar, okay, and especially with all electric, the prices are just too high. So our perspective on how the logo is looking does not really matter. Maybe they are trying to target certain consumers who are into all electric and the kind of machines they are making. So if we don't like the logo, it's not probably not for us. You know? So that is something I would say, and obviously there is a lot of information out there as to why it was done, how exactly it was done, and
And there are a few things that you have to remember. First of all, as he said, we are not the target audience. Most people जिन्होंने डिस्क किया है, they don't have the money to afford it. ठीक है? दूसरा ये, the people who had that old perception of Jaguar are probably going to die in 10 years. Like very old people, and there's a new generation coming in, and they are targeting people who might become billionaires in the next 10 years. So they're sort of laying the groundwork for this new image. And as he said, there would be so much thought behind that we don't even know. And Sam Altman had this very popular blog. It's called How to Be Successful. It's on his original blog, and he said that it is better to be short-term low status in order to achieve long-term high status, right? At this point, Jaguar in the short term is being considered as a very low status brand and everybody's making fun of them. This is what happened with Crocs as well, by the way. Like Crocs was supposed to be like this very ugly looking slippers and nobody cared about them until you had Justin Bieber wearing them in some party, or you had like Google ki puri team just hanging out with them. So perception is very intangible, it's very fluid. The day Kanye West features 50 Jaguars in his next music video, suddenly the perception will change. Suddenly, right? Because I've seen the car, it's not that bad. I was reading the comments saying that, oh, it looks like unfinished homework, who are you to define how does unfinished homework even looks like? Right? The definition of unfinished, minimalism, right? If I would say that all the iOS app icons now look unfinished. If you were to compare them with the skeuomorphism era, जिसमें वो नोट में भी ऊपर लेदर टेक्सचर होता था, वो फटा हुआ पूरा टेक्सचर होता था, वो फिनिश लगता है, और अभी का नोट्स का ऐप आइकन अनफिनिश लगता है, right? So perception is something which is very fluid, and we can't judge so quickly.
Khushika, would you like?
Sure, I think I totally agree to Anik that we never should judge a logo or anything or a branding or a rebranding that has been done, because again बहुत सारा thought जाता है, बहुत सारा research work जाता है behind the rebranding, because again as he said that the company was in losses and they wanted to change the whole identity, the whole perception of how people are seeing Jaguar. Of course, they left the legacy behind, and जिसकी वजह से लोगों को बहुत hurt हो रहा है, they are literally getting very hurt. And I think, yeah, I'm very curious to see कि जैसे अंश ने भी mention किया that if Kanye West ने आगे next in a few years अगर Jaguar खड़ी कर दी अपने video songs में, then perception पूरा change हो जाएगा. So I'm really curious to see that how Jaguar now unleash the new identity and how they are going to target the new audience, because again the pricing is going to be very high, and what kind of audience they are targeting right now. So that is like the main question I have right now in my mind, and yeah, I'm just pretty curious and pretty excited to see that आगे जाके Jaguar की क्या identity बनने वाली है, and what kind of people are going to buy Jaguar. Of course, the billionaires, but yeah, that's the whole thing I have.
Perfect. I think then it's time for one more game. This time we'll do a fun rapid round section. It's not much around design, but generally you'll act as a creator.
Start from that.
Yeah. There's not 10 questions. We'll go by quick. Don't think much before answering. Let's start with Ansh. What's the first app you checked in the morning?
Instagram.
Sorry.
What's the first app that you check in the morning after you wake up?
Instagram.
I turn off my alarm.
Alarm is the app.
Smart.
Okay.
It's like what do you open first? My eyes.
Google Calendar. Google Calendar.
See, I'm the older one.
Describe your birthday in one word.
Describe my birthday.
Birthday.
Hectic.
I'll say behind this.
Exciting.
Eventful.
If you could have done a dinner with any person dead or alive, who would it?
Steve Jobs.
PC, Priyanka Chopra.
Nikhil Kamath. Which spoiler alert I already did.
Okay, we'll be on the lookout for that.
My wife.
Very safe. I hope she's watching the live stream by the way. Like Sapta will do that.
You're being recorded live?
Oh yeah, it's happening.
My God.
What video on the internet?
Live.
We were not told about this.
बहुत जल्दी बोला.
That's the element of surprise that we introduced. But good answer that. What's the strangest piece of feedback that anyone has given?
Feedback towards me or my.
Towards you or your
They just say that आप बहुत लंबे हो. I've received this feedback many times.
Okay.
For me, it has been that I speak very fast.
And we बोलते हैं आप बहुत छोटे हो.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting biased based on what these people are saying. I've also got feedback around many of these things. Once I've received that you need skincare.
Oh God.
Yeah, because I used to have, I mean, I still do, acne scars. And somebody said you need skincare. Thanks, I started taking care of my skin after that. Okay.
One tool or app that you cannot live without.
Notion.
For me, it's Google Meet.
The camera app.
WhatsApp.
If not design or the current field that you're working in, what else would you be doing?
Filmmaker.
I would have been an IAS officer.
मेरे को एक्टर बनना था.
Auto journalist.
What's your guilty pleasure TV show or movie?
I'm very proud of everything I see. At the office, I used to watch The Office a lot, but it's not a guilty pleasure. Like, I'm proud to be an Office fan.
Again, I'm not guilty of watching that show, Breaking Bad. Uske baad, it's like nothing is really easy.
Yeah, I was gonna say The Office only. Incredible show, my favorite. And there's this one more show I keep watching. It's on Apple TV. It's called Ted Lasso.
Yeah,
Very good show. It's a football show, but like it really teaches you leadership, team building, and it's very inspiring. Like, I love it. You know, I just keep watching it again and again.
Great characters.
Yeah.
You mentioned just guilty pleasure. It doesn't have to be show, right?
Can be.
Again, I'm very biased. 70s Bollywood movies. Amitabh Bachchan, Amar Akbar Anthony. You know why I love them? You don't have to use your full brain. You could keep it playing in the background and you could continue working. Passive entertainment doesn't distract you, but you also get entertained. You understand this.
What's your favorite movie of that era? You have to say.
Amar Akbar Anthony. Yes, yeah, Surya Prashad.
Yeah, that's very good.
That's 90s, no, that's not 70s. 70s are even more.
I was actually not there in the 70s.
How do you think I am? How do you think I know? I'm stepping out.
Great, great. Final set of questions. Coffee, tea, or something else? If you live creativity.
Coffee.
I like hot water.
Coffee.
Black coffee.
You know, there's a very funny story. I went to Bali. I have a friend Digvijay. He's into health content. तो हम एक कैफे में गए बाली में और दिग्विजय से कॉफी लेके आया. बोलता बहुत बढ़िया कॉफी है. मैं कॉफी पी और मुझे तो नॉर्मली लगी. कहता कैसी लगी? मैं बोला अच्छी लगी. तो he told me this story. It's called captivated. कुछ ऐसा उसका नाम है. Basically. No, there's this बिल्ली in Bali वो कॉफी खाती है. Then वो हाँ कैफी लोआ. And he told me this after I drank the entire thing.
And you know what? Here's not an important point today. Since we were talking about storytelling, there's no evidence that is the best coffee in the world or the most flavorful coffee in the world. It is great storytelling which is making that coffee sell in large numbers in a huge price tag.
But
Like,
it's such a bad story. After listening to that story, I
but it's a believable story. For people who do not know, the thing is coffee beans. The whole point is filtering the coffee beans. You are making 1,000 coffee beans here. How do you know which 5 of them are the best? You do not know as humans. Those billies, whatever, right? That weasels, they know. Out of those 1,000 beans, they eat only those 5 which are the best. Once they eat, the seed gets inside their stomach, and then in natural process it comes on the other side of the body. They pick those seeds and roast them and make coffee.
And
So it's the filtering process which is hyped and made into such a big story.
And I was just thinking, who discovered it for the first time, right? Imagine the mindset of it there.
I've been to one such farm in Vietnam. I didn't quite like that coffee. It was okay, the experience was nice. I've seen those animals, I've seen the entire process. Finally, they gave me a cup as well. It was like a workshop sort of thing. But the coffee was too bitter for my liking.
Yeah, it's normal coffee.
Perfect. I think one final question. This time we start from here. This time, if you could redesign one famous logo, which one would it be?
I know the answer. Zomato.
Uber Eats.
You're not going to ask me to show the design, right?
Yeah.
Apple.
Khushika Anik. I think Anik, you recently mentioned about Rapido for example. It's a good example.
But the Rapido reel was actually very good. Now that they've entered into cars,
Yeah.
that logo needs a major redesign.
Spoiler alert, they reached out.
Oh wow! Distribution.
Anik has been just talking truth bombs the entire time.
Oh, they live already.
Well, I think we'll move to one final question.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. I would love to redesign Starbucks. It's going to be very tough.
Yeah.
Toughest project ever, but I would love to see what it happens.
Great answer. I think one final question, which is looking at how the industry and market has evolved over the last few years. If you need to give one advice to a budding designer who is coming into this field with a lot of expectations, lot of information overload, what's the one thing that you would tell them that please look into this or this is your message to them?
Learn dark patterns.
Definition क्या?
How dark?
Okay, so I'll just say one thing. This thing has really helped me in my entire journey, and I mean, there's a lot more to do. But just the fact that being curious about each and everything, questioning a lot of things, and not being settled by the answer you get in the one go is probably the reason why I'm here in front of you guys. I feel like as designers, we have the right, and it's our duty to question each and everything. Not only just to show that okay, I'm a designer, I'll question you, but to also find out answers, which not normal people will have, and which might lead to the future things. So I would say just be curious. Sapta also, I think I've learned this also from him that the most curious person I know I've met. So and by sitting here, he's questioned that there are 7 lights here, 6 lights there, and there are a lot of other things. So I would say be curious, and it will take you a long way. It will take you to greater things.
Since you've taken my name, yes, I could give many advice, but since you mentioned one, yes, be curious, but let me also answer how curious is curious enough. Let me give this example. The level 0 of curiosity, at least in my mind, is whenever you live your life, be it listening to us or walking around the street and all, you encounter many words, terms, something that you do not know. If you do not immediately Google that, you're not curious enough. You've got a smartphone with internet connection in your pocket. If you're not Googling it, Just to know the meaning. I'm not asking you to write a thesis. Just Google up the meaning and see. Could be a new word, could be a new terminology, a new law, new rule, new company, new brand, new car, whatever. If you're not Googling, you're not curious enough. That's the definition of how curious is curious enough in my post.
I would also say one more thing I learned from Ansh. मैं और अंश होटल में बैठे थे there was he had opened his laptop and he was almost launching his Hindi channel. And one thing I would say we Indian designers don't do, and I have not seen many people do it. We don't focus on details. We हम सब ऊपर ऊपर से करते हैं. You know वो जो in depth जाना होता है we never do that, and that's where half of us don't even excel and don't even reach to the next level. अभी अंश ने YouTube चैनल बनाया हिंदी का. उसका इंट्रोडक्शन द म्यूजिक जो सितार ड्रम व्हाटएवर he recorded, he hired a sitar artist, recorded the music is going to play in the intro of his Hindi channel video. Like who does that level of detail? So I think we should focus on details a lot. I think we major of us miss that, and yeah, would you like to say more on that?
No, I think I could do it because I really enjoy it. And I ask questions all the time. In fact, I would recommend this YouTube channel called Epic Spaceman. मैंने अपने Instagram पे भी डाला था Epic Spaceman. Folks, I think we underestimate the fact that we are living in a magical world altogether. The fact that we have Wi-Fi, the fact that we have internet. And the video that I'm talking about on Epic Spaceman, that was just describing the size of the universe. And it was just explaining कि अगर एक मिल्की वे गैलेक्सी हम अर्थ पर है, हम अर्थ के कंपैरिजन में इतने छोटे हैं और मिल्की वे गैलेक्सी में है, और अगर मैं पूरी की पूरी मिल्की वे गैलेक्सी को एक इतने से सीरियल में कन्वर्ट करूं, it would take us around 323 Olympic sized swimming pools filled with those cereals to just describe the size of the observable universe, and you are in the center of it. So sometimes my mind just boggles कि हम अपने day-to-day life में इतने busy हो गए हैं that we forget that it's just so magical to be alive. And the more you ask questions, the more you get fascinated about life, and it keeps you excited. The more you dig deep, आपको answers मिलते हैं, आप patterns ढूंढते हो, आपको life में बहुत excitement दिखता है. If you're just following what other people are telling you, you will just lose that spark.
I think I would like to say that we as a human being should be okay if it's not working. And I think that is something that I've learned in this year. Because like even if you're a content creator as a designer or if you're working anywhere, we get so much stress that okay, if it's not working, I don't know where I'll be in the next 1 year or 6 months. But I think it's okay if it's not working right now. Maybe you should explore more. Maybe you should not just stick to something that you are doing right now. And that is going to take you way ahead of where you are right now. So yeah, don't stress, just keep exploring and don't be a constant. Yeah, that's it.
I think that's a very nice ending to this panel, that message. I hope you guys had fun. If you had fun, so the speakers will be there for some time. We have a meet and greet session, but उसके पहले we have created networking, but उसके पहले we have snacks as well. Yeah. So snacks are ready for you guys, is what I'm hearing as per news. The thanks everyone for hearing in. I hope the discussions we have, the banter we had has helped you in some way or form, and you take a story out of here in your memory books. So thank you once again. Food and everything is being arranged, so you can start going one by one. We do have our trademark cupcakes as well. So I know you are a big fan, so feel free to do that. Yeah. We'll take. Yeah, Taza, because the cupcakes are fresh.
Freshly ordered from Swiggy.
ले लो कैमरा, ये हटा दो. हाँ. ये डन विद लाइव. Yeah.